All right, one more. Yes. Purpose. You saw that on someone else's that said, I should have wrote that down. All right. Let me back up just for a second. Is there, did everyone at least find someone to write on their paper? Is there anyone that has a totally blank piece of paper where they were not able to find any signatures? Okay, so everybody was at least able to find one signature. That's great. That's great. All right, so as you were going around the room, were there things that were more difficult to find someone to sign on, or you actually didn't find someone to sign on? What was, yes?
Love.
Love. Please raise your hand if you value love, even if it wasn't written on your paper. All right, cool. One more. Yes? Community. Please raise your hand if you value community, even if it wasn't written on your paper. All right? Cool. You know what? I'll be risky and go up for one more. Yes, sir. Oh, one more. Yes?
Communication.
Communication. If you value communication, raise your hand. All right, great. What was the obvious point of this particular exercise? What were we trying to get at with this exercise? Yes, ma'am. We are more alike than we think. We are more alike than we oftentimes know. And what I would submit to you is that it is our values that are much more alike, although we have differing cultures. And we'll talk briefly about what that is. So that's important, that we're more alike than we're different. And what is it that makes us most alike? Our values, all right? What else makes us most alike?
We're all people.
We are human beings, right? So before we were anything else, we were born human, and we'll get a chance to talk about that really quick. So, and one of the things that I celebrate is that I live in one of the greatest countries that's ever existed in the history of humanity, the United States of America. I love this country. Right? The preamble, we hold we the people, the preamble to the Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare and the security of blessings and liberty to ourselves and our posterity, we do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Declaration of Independence, paragraph 2, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, His truth is... Okay, so if you read those words and adrenaline doesn't start pumping, you don't get excited about this country, you need a checkup. All right? These are great and wonderful things. And so because I love this country, I can call her to task. Because I don't mind paying taxes as long as they plow my street. Right? So I don't mind being a part of this great democracy. And so as a part of this great democracy, I can call her to task. And there have been some inconsistencies with all of these great things. We'll talk about them right now. In 1863, what happened? 1863. The Emancipation, right up here. No tricks. Right? So the Emancipation Proclamation is signed, right? Which did what? It freed the slaves in the South, right? So, and it made human servitude, involuntary human servitude, illegal unless you committed a crime, but that's a whole other thing about the prison pipeline, but we'll talk about that later. And so in 1863, the slaves in the South are free. Some people have questions as if that was a benevolent act by President Lincoln, or was he just trying to destabilize the South to win the war? However it happened, it happened. All right. In 1920, August 18th, the 19th Amendment is signed, doing what for whom? Giving women voting rights, right? In 1924, the Polk Act is signed, which is the Indian Citizenship Act, which gave Native Americans the right to be U.S. citizens. Pause for the irony. In 1964, what happens? The Civil Rights Act is signed. The Civil Rights Act says two things: that discrimination is illegal and that we will end segregation. Right? So it defines discrimination and it ends segregation. In 1978, the Native American Freedom of Religion Act is signed, giving Native Americans the right to worship as they wish. Seems a little late, doesn't it? On a country that's founded. Okay, anyway. And in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so why am I bringing this up in the context of talking about poverty and the concept of talking about culture? Is that when these systems were set up, they weren't set up for all of us. They did not have all of us in mind. And we'll continue. So what is it that we're really talking about? What we're talking about is the definition or the conversation of moving from equality to talking about equity. And so and the difference being, and I don't know if you can see this picture very well, when we talk about equality, we have a short person, a medium-sized person, and a tall person all standing on the same box because it is equal. They have equal access. But the problem isn't the equal access. The problem is that it's not working for the short dude. And so when we start talking about equity, what we have is a tall person standing on his own, the medium-sized person standing on one box, and the shortest person standing on two boxes, so that they get the same benefit of the activity. And so when we talk about poverty, what we actually are talking about is inequity, a systematic inequity that we're trying to help right-size so that people can get what it is that they need, so they can live out their human potential and get everything that the Constitution of the United States says belongs to its citizens. All right, and we're also talking about the golden ratio of the internal and external biases and privileges and internalized racism, and where they meet with power and economics. We know that if you want to be active in this society, if you want to get things done, you do have to have a certain amount of financial capital. You also have to have some political capital. And we'll talk about both of those as that second session goes on. We also want to fight against the hegemony. And the hegemony is the leadership or dominance of a country or a social group over others to their own benefit. And so we'll talk a little bit about hegemonies. I want to take these last 3 minutes and just talk about the truths of human beings. Because one of the things that we will get confused about is this concept of race and what race means. And I will tell you in the next session what that has changed to. But I want to address these 4 truths about human beings, because this is true about all groups. First, human beings can learn, change, and grow. Who you see today is not who you would have seen at 17. I'm not the same guy. Hopefully I'm better. I'm not as freshly cut as I was back then, but that's a whole nother thing, right? People do what they think works even when what? Even when it doesn't work, right? And why do they do it? If they're not seeing a benefit from it, why are they doing it?
They haven't been told that it's not working.
Because they haven't been told that it's not working?
Scared to change.
Because they're scared to change? Because it's worked in the past. And typically what we do is, if it's worked in the past, then we build on that learning and we think that it'll work in the present, and we'll think that it'll work in the future until it doesn't work, right? Thirdly, all human behavior is goal-directed, so everybody is doing something to help them reach a goal. So if I'm going to be a good helper to someone, then I must know what their goal is. And lastly, an attitude is a reaction to a goal. And what have you been taught about an attitude? What is an attitude? It's a mindset. What's an attitude? It's what? It's a reaction. It's a judgment. All right. I'll just give you this quick example. When I was 17, and again, I think I mentioned my father was a pastor, so I'm a pastor's son. And so on Sunday, we would go to church from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We'd stop at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. So we go to church all day on Sunday. So Friday night, I asked my dad for the car, and what does my dad say? says yes, he loves me, right? So I get in the car, I'm hanging out with my friends, I fill it up with gas, fill the car up with gas, I toss my dad the keys, I come home before curfew, and my dad says I have what kind of an attitude? A good attitude. And what do I say about my dad's attitude? What do I say about my dad's attitude? That he also has a good attitude. So Friday night, we're cool. Sunday, my best friend Dexter calls me at noon and says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sunday? Church. So I'm 17, I'm invincible, and Jesus is my friend. So I go up to my dad and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? And what does my dad say?
No.
Not only does he say no, but he gives me the hell lecture. See, in my household, the worst thing you could do was go to hell. Didn't make the bed? Go into hell. Didn't cut the grass? Go into hell. And either you could go to hell on your own or my dad would show you the way. As a result of that interaction, I would say my dad had what kind of an attitude? A bad. He would say, what about my attitude? So what is it that actually drives or defines one's attitude?
Interaction with others.
Whether you get what you want.